Welcome to Keep It Humane, the podcast, where we dive deep into topics surrounding kindness, compassion, and creating a more humane world, whether it's in our communities, in the workplace, or in the world of animal control and shelters. With our hosts,
Ashlee Bishop.
And Ashlee Bishop.
And I'm Daniel Ettinger. This show is sponsored by Tomahawk Live Trap. Check them out, livetrap.com. Well, hello there, Kristen and Nicole. Yeah, that's right.
I hate it. How dare you?
I'm going to find out where you live, Daniel.
I think you know where I live. So that's
I
right,
have his
folks.
address.
Instead of Texas Bishop and Wisconsin Bishop, I'm just going to start calling them by their respected middle names since at least we had some differences there.
So HSUS conference is when again?
Well, it's not HSUS anymore. It's Humane World for Animals, so get it right. Welcome to 2025 and the Keep It Humane podcast. See, even they can change their name, Texas or Wisconsin Bishop.
You can't even keep us straight if you go back to our original names, Daniel.
Tomahawk Live Trap is celebrating its 100th year of business in 2025. They're a family-owned and operated business who work with humane professionals all around the world to produce the safest and most effective animal handling equipment available. You can save 10%, that's right, 10% on their products by using discount code Keep It Humane, all caps, Keep It Humane. You can visit them online at livetrap.com or call them 800-272-8727. How are the bishops?
Sick.
One sick, one just woke up.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry.
Huh?
You've been sick for a while. I feel really bad.
I've been sick since the beginning of the year. Yeah.
I'm
And
telling
now
you,
it's
it's the facility.
now it's
Oh.
pneumonia and a second sinus infection or continued sinus infection. I don't know.
There's probably like black mold.
It's only a 16-year-old building.
Oh,
Well, one of my newer employees is he's like, I've been sick this whole time I've been here. And I was like, it's the building.
I was there at the inception of that building, though, and I worked in a building 10 times worse than that before we moved to that building. I mean,
I
it's
stand
been
by it. It's the
15
building.
years since I've been there, though, I
yeah,
guess.
it makes sense. Like she's just super sick. Well, we're gonna have a great show today. We're gonna talk about cats, and I love talking about cats because
Don't fuck with them either.
also if you haven't seen the Netflix series "Don't F with Cats," um, well,
Sure is interesting.
It was a good one.
it really was, and it's surprising how many people in our specifically like in our profession or in the law enforcement world that haven't seen it. And that's always a recommended one. And it's only is it like three? Is it 3 or 6 episodes? It's not long.
It's
It's
not long.
not.
It's binge worthy.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
it
It
is.
It's
is.
bingeable.
I feel like we could do that. Like we could do the. We're not going to give away the stuff, but like we could be the internet heroes that like find people.
Oh God, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. The amount I actually had a case that I did that with. Um, Guy released his dog and everything, and he tried telling me that it wasn't his dog. And I was ended up going through his Facebook photos, and I literally found one photo that had just the dog's paw in the corner. It was a picture of him and his girl,
Hmm.
dog's paw, but it was very distinctive markings on the paw. And I'm like, dude, I have proof right here because I have photo of your dog's paw and this,
The
and
same marking.
absolutely perfectly same marking.
It's amazing how people don't realize that we also have access to social media. And it's like one of our biggest tools that we use for people
Oh
who
yeah.
lie in the field. It's just really.
But I have an idea for another episode, guys. Social media stories.
Okay.
Mm,
Stay tuned for that. Yeah, that's a good idea. I like that, Nicole. Well, let's introduce our guest. Well, before we do that, make sure y'all check out the social medias. Speaking of the Facebooks, the Instagrams. She's still giving me that look. So if you're watching on YouTube, you can see it from Ashlee Nicole Bishop.
Do you feel it coming through the computer at you?
And so check us
feel it
out
coming at
anywhere
me.
you get podcasts and social media stuff. I want to introduce our guest. I'm really excited to have our next guest on. It's most people don't know I lived really close to Brooklyn, and I don't know if our guest would consider this the sixth borough of Manhattan, but we're going to ask Will Zweigart, who is the executive director of Flashbook. Wow, This is me. It's
Wow,
me.
already.
Flatbush Vet Flatbush
Why don't you
Cats.
let him introduce himself?
Let's just
Because
do
it
that.
might make more
I
sense.
can't use words this morning. Will, thank you for joining the podcast and dealing with this this morning.
Yeah, good morning. Happy to do a little intro, and some of these words are a little challenging first of the day. I have to also say I'm a diehard Tomahawk. We're Team Tomahawk
Oh.
from day one. So we've purchased somewhere in the range of a gazillion traps. As an adult, it's my version of like a toy store. It's like going through the catalog. I'm like, what new gadgets are available?
Have you seen the magnetic trap yet? It's fan
I no.
it's fantastic because it is also for releasing your stress on the day because you have to like punch the door open. And so like
That's
when
all
you're
she was
really
doing at this exhibit.
it
We were
was
in
my
text.
hand was
She's
so
like, "Look,
bruised.
look, look! You can punch the door." And then yeah. But Tomahawk's great. That's awesome that you use them, Will. And hopefully,
Hmm.
if you weren't already using the discount code, you can use the Keep It Humane discount code.
Yeah, and for any up and coming rescue squads, just go with Tomahawk. We've used it exclusively for almost 10 years because it works. It's reliable. You can beat it down and it's not gonna fail on you at that critical moment where the hard to trap cat has finally made themselves present. Um, super excited to be here. My name is Will Zweigart. I'm the founder and executive director of Flatbush Cats, which also recently opened Flatbush Veterinary Clinic. And I can talk about the distinction between those, but in short, Flatbush Cats was really started around dealing with a extremely high number of street cats in central Brooklyn. And I'm a lifelong cat lover, and so we definitely have cats as part of our origin story. Flatbush Vet was created to serve both cats and dogs, recognizing that, our larger dog friends are more than half of the shelter population in Brooklyn and New York City. So we wanted to kind of hit both of those, provide services for both of those animals at the same time. We were founded in 2018 out of a desire to really understand this problem. So I'm excited to be here with you all today, and we'll talk about what's happening on the ground, but also talk about the systemic issues that we need to be surfacing and discussing within the sector. We see ourselves as disruptors, as challengers. I was just working in another field. I was working in like corporate advertising and cats everywhere, could not rescue our way out of it. And I just had a deep curiosity for what is it actually going to take, to prevent this type of suffering, to get shelters and the broader ecosystem to some level of stability, because shelters here, just like in Texas and everywhere else, are in a state of crisis at all times. If you think about like the human body, like you can't be in a state of crisis all the time. That's absolutely terrible for you. You will just shut down. And so while we do cat rescue, we do trap neuter return. We stepped into the access to care space with Flatbush Vet, which opened in late 2023. Ultimately, our focus is on finding and implementing systemic solutions that are going to reduce, some of these issues across the board.
Thanks for saying Flatbush Vet and Cats correctly, because I really started us off poorly. So you don't have a background in veterinary medicine. You're not from that world at all.
No, and it wasn't even until like I was halfway through trying to build a clinic that someone told me, like, usually it's a vet opening a clinic. And I was like, yeah, that tracks. I'm not a vet. However, I realized that our community desperately needs these services. No one is coming to them with what they need, what we all know they need at an affordable price point. This is a verified veterinary desert, particularly when it comes to price point. And so I just kind of have a get it done mentality. And I think not being from this sector has been a gift because I can just see things with an outsider's eyes, and I can delicately call out like I'm seeing this, this, and this. I'm not so acclimated to everything that I can call something out if I find it to be odd, and we can talk about it and work through it.
But the question is, are you willing to listen to those that are in the field?
Yeah, that's been I think a huge part of our early trajectory is that so many folks were willing to share time with me. I reached out to them, just asked to learn about what they do, asked to learn about how their clinic works, asked other neighborhood groups, talk to community members. So we've just been on a listening tour ever since we started, and I think that's been tremendously helpful in understanding where things are at.
I would agree because that's one of the things that I think I have seen throughout many different facets of either it be animal welfare or just general business is somebody comes in and says, "Hey, this is how we need to fix it," but not knowing the other end of why things are being done the way that they are. And then they fix it and we're like, well, but now it doesn't work because XYZ. So the fact that you're willing to listen and in doing the research is phenomenal.
Yeah, and there's you make such a great point because there is a little boost you get from the naivety of I have no idea how hard this thing is going to be. And if I had any idea how hard it was to fundraise, build, and then run a very high volume, clinic with none of that experience, I probably wouldn't have had the courage to do it. I had to be naive enough to think I could do it in order to get started. But yeah, to your point, you learn, hey, there is no silver bullet. I'm very much on the spay neuter train, but I've realized, hey, no single service, no single thing we can bring to this is gonna just like solve it. A complex problem is messy and has a lot of different solutions that are needed.
So what do you think those top solutions are? If you could give your top three.
Yeah, great question. I think the biggest issue we face is what I would call cultural inertia. Like the facts and the data are out there and we are not acting on them because just we as people, and I say this without judgment, we're slow to change. We're slow to give up or refresh our values and attitudes and beliefs. But the facts and the data for 10 to 20 years have shown that if we were to allocate a significant percentage of our resources towards preventative care, access to care, things that pet owners need in the first place, if we were to do that, and when we do that, we will see fewer downstream cases, whether that's a cat that needs help, whether that's a hoarding case, whether that's a serious medical issue that no one has the funds to treat. And I come from the downstream world. Like I come from doing rescue, from doing emergency triage, from doing trap-neuter-return, and just personally seeing for years, oh, it literally doesn't matter how many cats I rescue. Literally doesn't matter. It could be one, it could be 100. We rescued over 500 cats last year alone. None of those individual cases are going to prevent a new cat tomorrow from needing help. So the biggest change that I think needs to happen, and it's going to take a lot of time and a lot of effort, and it's going to take everyone being willing to shift their own framing on this, is we have to be investing in upstream access to care and things that prevent problems before they happen.
You're speaking my love language right now, Will. I just wonder, where does it come from? Where what we see in this industry specifically is people that come in without maybe the boots on the ground experience, and not that that's a bad thing. They tend to get distracted by some of the emotional ties to this response, and you're really taking a practical approach to it. So where is that coming from?
Um, a I'm deeply pragmatic just by nature, but
Okay.
also I have a deep belief that if we can do something, we must. Because I saw all of this suffering firsthand. I had kittens die in my hands because I wasn't able to save them. And I think that makes me unique as an executive director because I've done, outside of the vet clinic, I've done all the jobs that, I could possibly do when it comes to TNR, rescue, adoption, community engagement. And I've seen the suffering and I've seen the neglect firsthand. And so I'm deeply driven to change that. We have, um, when we encountered cats needing help and you just feel overwhelmed and you just have like no resources. I'm thinking about one cat specifically. When you just get started in rescue, you can fall into the deep end pretty quickly in terms of finances, in terms of filling up your space with animals, in terms of, maxing out your own individual capacity and then going beyond, like going into debt, burning out, like depleting your resources as a human. And I found this cat that was kind of at her low point. This kitten had like crawled out and sat in the middle of the sidewalk. It was a blazing hot August Saturday morning. She's sitting in the sun, flies are circling, her eyes are gooped up. And I had just dropped off like the maximum number of cats I could take to the nearest spay neuter clinic. It was over an hour away. We're in central Brooklyn. The nearest spay neuter clinic was in Queens. So to get there it's 4 hours. I have to go get I don't have a car, so I have to go get like rent a Ford van, bring it back, fill it with 10 cats, drive an hour to Queens, drop them off at 7 a.m., drive an hour back. And then I'm naive enough that I decided to go on do some scouting. So I'm like going out scouting future colonies. I say naive because now I know you're not going to go scout without bringing home something, right? And so I see this cat. I'm like, oh, this is bad. I cannot leave this scene. This cat's got a couple hours left, but my mind's racing and I have literally no containers. Like every trap is full, every cage is full, every carrier is at the clinic. And so I have to carry this cat home. And she's so sick. She's sort of like a older semi-feral kitten. But she's so sick that she just lets me carry her home across like these busy avenues. And I made her a promise. Her name is Mani. She's fine now. We adopted her. I made her a promise that we would not only help her, but that we would prevent cats like her from suffering. And so that's my why is I think we owe it to these pets to do our absolute best to prevent suffering. And whatever that takes, we have to be willing to do it, including changing how we operate.
We need to get with Tomahawk Live Trap and have them create almost like a grocery cart, but with with carriers in that, and you could just get on the train and then take it to Queens. You'd be you'd be there and back in an hour. What are we talking about here, Will?
Yeah. Yeah, and we couldn't get like we could never you start to as a rescuer, like I really feel I really can relate to the animosity where you feel like it's like no one else is like dealing with what you're dealing. And this is similar with some of the experiences that you can have in a shelter environment, that you can have in an animal control environment where it's like it's not true, but it feels like you against the world. And we didn't have any spay neuter appointments. Like the borough of Brooklyn, 2.5 million people, and we're trying to do right by the animals and right by the city, and we're trying to do as much trap neuter return as we can. And I was like, well, if we can't get enough spay neuter appointments, like we're cooked. And then you talk to our community members, and we couldn't do community engagement because you need to bring resources to the party, right? Like you can't just go, it's nice to listen, but it's not great if you're just like hearing about all the problems and not able to help. So I live in Flatbush and everyone in our neighborhood needed something. They needed a spay neuter. One of their cats had kittens, now they have six. And so it was just obvious that like we're gonna have to do something about this ourselves. And that's really what propelled us into building and opening a clinic. And on the other side of that, now we're asking questions like, what other resources would be helpful in the category of surrender prevention or in the category of access to care? What else would be helpful to keep pets with their families?
So is that vet clinic a full service vet clinic or is it primarily spay neuter?
Yeah, it started. it started primarily spay neuter, and then as we were researching, because we did probably 2 years of chatting with other groups, chatting with folks across the country, the big light bulb for me was understanding that people don't need everything to be free. I mean, some do, but the biggest underserved population actually would prefer to be able to provide for their pets with affordable care. And so the big light bulb was, hey, this is going to be very expensive, but we could actually eventually it could pay for itself if we charge a reasonable fee for services. And so with that in mind, we added on wellness from day one. So we do really two things at launch. We do all your preventative stuff like, vaccines, simple blood work, simple diagnostics, maybe some like minor skin, ear issues and things like that, but really like healthy pet visits and then high quality, high volume spay neuter. And I'm so glad that we added wellness from the jump. And I'm so glad that we added dogs from the jump because that really helped us be a lot more of service and provide a lot more support to our neighbors. And we found that coming in for the wellness visit was the ultimate referral source for spay neuter. Like the people that, because now my perspective on this has evolved, and I think about spay neuter as something that we need you to do. Like the city needs you to get your cat or dog spay neutered. Your local animal group really needs you to get your cat or dog spayed or neutered. It may not be the number one thing on their list. And so the number one thing on their list might have been flea tick, might have been, hey, something's a little weird over here, or I just haven't brought them in for their shots or they've never even seen a vet. So the best outreach tool that we ever created was by accident, and that was by having wellness services. Folks are bringing their pet in, they're having a trusted interaction with a vet. We are prioritizing creating a welcoming, safe space for folks. We design the experience knowing that for many, this is their first time seeing a vet. And so we want them to feel very welcome. And in that exam room where they get to talk to the vet, that is when they have the trusted conversation of, hey, it looks like this is a good time to get your pet spayed or neutered. They're due for a booster in 3 weeks. Let's go ahead and get you scheduled for that.
How have you guys been able to make this affordable? Like, are you working with some of the medical companies to get lower cost things? Or I want to know how we can expand this to across the country because, some of these costs are coming down from the corporations that are charging way too much for things. And we see it in both human and animal. Um, But do you have any tips for vet clinics that want to do that and how to be able to offer that and still make a profit?
Yeah, I just developed a full new presentation about it's called "What Does It Take to Build, a spay neuter clinic?" And the theme through line to that actually is sustainability, because ultimately I know that fundraising is a massive, massive challenge for the majority of groups who would aspire to do something like this. So you do need upfront capital. You do need like your capital expenses, and I'm going to be giving this presentation again, so I'll connect with you all and make sure that
Absolutely.
that information is available. But fundraising and hiring a vet are the two biggies that people are the most concerned by for good reason. The funny thing about sort of our material costs and medical supply costs is that the large veterinary chains, they actually pay a fraction of what we pay for vaccines, and that's messed up. I won't name them by name, but you know them, like the mega corp vet practices. They have negotiated like just crazy price points for stuff due to their volume. And I get the value of a volume discount, but there are not really a lot of cost savings available to us as a nonprofit because, like healthcare, like anything else, we get the same note in the mail, like from Zoetis, from everyone else, like, yep, costs are going up 10%,
Hmm.
15%. So we get totally hosed on that stuff. But I think we can still make it work because, and I say this with total love and respect for private general practice, particularly those individual practitioner vets who are doing their best. I've never met a vet to this day, by the way, who didn't just want to help, pets. So
Yep.
no one is getting into this for a quick buck, but
They're all heartless and want to kill everything, though, Will.
yeah, and that's something I want to chat about because that's part of the some of the mindset shifts that we have to make. We are trained to find individuals to blame. I think this came up when you spoke with Hannah from Spark.
Sure.
We are trained and indoctrinated in the US. If you succeed, it's because you pulled yourself up by the bootstraps. If you fail, it's because you didn't work hard enough. You didn't take that third or fourth or fifth job. Let's start talking about fifth jobs just so everyone can understand how insane we are now. You didn't take a fifth job to be able to take your animal to the vet, and so you're a bad pet parent. And so yeah, you go through this blame cycle as you're learning about this sector, and your understanding of who is actually responsible continues to evolve. And I think I'm at the final stage where I'm like back to us. I'm like all the way back to me. It's our mindset and how we're looking at this problem that ultimately will need to change. But there are some big there's a lot of responsibility to be had by the biggest players in the space and the role that they are playing in basically reinforcing the system that we have today.
And I think it's interesting that you say that because, in the mindset that we have, at my facility, and I wish more people, at least here in Texas, had, is, and I had a case, and maybe we'll talk about it, months down the road. How do we keep our pets in the home? A lot of times the simplest thing of giving them a tether or helping them maybe fence off a part of the yard or I don't know. It's I feel like there's two fighting sides in the industry right now. It's give them everything that they absolutely need, or no, they're a bad parent, they should be able to provide on their own. And it's like we need to meet somewhere in the middle because I feel like both of those sides at the end of the day don't help us alleviate the day-to-day problem that we always have. You know, the shelters are in a space right now because we have a community problem.
Mhm.
Shelters are full in their areas because it is a community problem, whether it's access to care, naive to how to take care of a pet, just to the simple fact that, you need to get your pet spayed or neutered so that it's not attracting the 50 boy dogs coming to your house because it's out on a tether in your backyard and they're trying to get in. Um, I just feel like we're stuck, and especially in the cat world, which is a lot different than the whole industry as a whole, where some of these ideas people don't like to listen to because all they see in their mind is, well, these agencies or these municipal shelters are just wanting to kill everything that comes in, or they don't want to help at all, or they demand that they help because it's our job to help, which I feel is where we got to our problem right now, where it's like we're giving, 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 but at the end of the day, we're not putting the responsibility back on the people who make that choice to get a pet.
Hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
What about, so I want to be mindful of this because what I think you're doing is incredible. And providing that access to care is something we talk about on this show at all times. Do you have a vision? And I'm not saying that the cost is high specifically, but I could see where it could be restrictive to some people in the community. Do you have a vision? Is there a plan? I know people can donate as well to try to even lower those costs more, but still be, successfully able to operate because there are overhead costs. Is that something that you're constantly kind of auditing or walk us through that approach?
Yeah. So I don't have the exact numbers in front of me, so I'm gonna speak kind of broadly, but the data says that the biggest cohort of people in the US who need help with access to care can afford to spend some money. They can afford a couple $100 a year. Um, the data says that veterinary care specifically is the greatest single cost barrier for, when they interview people, why didn't you adopt? Why are you surrendering? You know, housing can be up there depending on where you're at. Housing is a big issue in New York City. That can be a big one, but typically the biggest cited reason why people are either surrendering or not adopting is cost. Um, I think there are two tiers to answer your question specifically, Daniel. There's the group of people who need low cost care. That's what we do. And there's a smaller group of people who are, let's say, from 0 to 25% of the average household median income in an area. So we will serve somewhere between the folks who are at 25 to 75% of the median household income in an area, which means that they have barriers. It means that rent probably takes up way more of their budget than it should. And those are dynamic situations. It can change for people. But that's the biggest group, and that's what our model is meant to do. The way that you serve everyone in terms of being able to provide no cost care when it's needed, I think comes from two other sources. One is government or municipal funding. And we can talk about government stuff for like 5 hours, right?
Hmm.
But where I'm at right now is there's a group of people in power right now who are trying to convince us that everything to do with government or municipal funding is wasteful and inefficient and bad. And no one would argue that there is not waste and inefficiency in the government, but we cannot abandon that as a source. That's what they want you to do. They want to privatize everything so that they can profit from it. We have to hold our local governments accountable for how they spend their money. And if we as taxpayers believe that they should be investing in things like access to care, it is on us as the taxpayers and as the people who put these folks in office as voters to speak up and say, hey, I know you're providing sheltering budget, but it looks like our per capita investment, for example, in New York, per capita investment is way below what it should be based on our population size. So I'm gonna, as a resident of New York City, I'm gonna hold my elected leaders accountable for spending what they need to spend so that they are not only funding sheltering, which is the bare minimum and frankly not enough, they also need to fund upstream efforts, which have tremendous cost benefits in addition to being the humane thing to do. So, what that would look like in New York City, and it's possible anywhere. For example, right now, New York City spends 98% of its animal welfare budget on sheltering, just reactive, and it's in a state of shock at all times, so it cannot absorb the next crisis. It cannot absorb any new disruption. So you could argue it's not even able to do its core job as a safety net. The minute community members start believing, as you mentioned earlier, that I shouldn't even bring my pet to the shelter because they'll put it down, the shelter is failing to do its job. But that's a messaging issue. It's not the fault of the shelter employees. So
We know
low
that,
cost.
but Will, yeah, let's. I just want to understand, like, you're right, and I think that the aspects of we talk about it on the show all the time is creating a world where animals are seen as family members and not property, and creating even a financial incentive from the government if you are a responsible pet owner by getting it spayed, neutered, having it microchipped, having it rabies vaccinated, etc. But how do we work within the community? And I think you mentioned something about like there are times where there are going to be free or no cost, low cost um, spay and neuter services. Maybe you're partnering with like a One Health outing, something in that nature. But how do we even get like if think about it, if I'm living on government assist and I have two dogs that I got from Facebook Marketplace and I have a dog that both of them need fixed. I have a boy and girl dog, and it's going to cost me 700 bucks to do that. Or I could put food on my table, or I could pay the cable bill, right? Priority wise, people may not see that as a priority. How do we ensure that that value is there for people? Not just a financial value, but like an overall existing value that their quality of life for that animal, the community, and those people that own the animal or have it as a family member will
Hmm.
benefit
Yeah.
from.
Yeah, I think it's hard because we're looking at decades of underinvestment in certain areas. So I can only speak to New York. I'm not familiar with the situation outside of New York. But again, all of the money has only gone to sheltering. There's been no dollars spent on community engagement with education as a subset of meeting people where they're at and understanding, making sure that they understand, for example, the health benefits and the behavioral benefits of a spay neuter, um, and connecting with them and offering to provide those services at a cost that they can afford. So those are two things that the city, New York City, is not currently funding, but could, should, and will fund in the future. Is, for example, we've subsidized services at Flatbush Vet. So if you need a $0 surgery, no problem. If you need a $100 surgery, no problem. And by the way, here's some resources for you. Here's some information about the benefits of these vaccines. Here's why spay neuter is important. Please share this with your neighbor because they'd rather hear it from you than me. And by the way, if you need, if you need some extra food for next month, like stop by. We do a pantry pickup at a regular, food pantry, to your point about One Health partnerships. These are all around the corner. These are all, I'm not going to say we're going to solve it overnight, but they're very substantive steps that we can take. One of the mistakes that we make is we assume the city cannot and will not, and I mean any city in the US. We basically assume that funding is not possible. We don't even ask. We don't even fight for it.
It's tough, again, for me, my dream job has always worked for municipality. It's my love for sheltering because it's the hardest job. We have the most uphill battle when it comes to our perception, to the amount of animals that we take in, to the funding that we don't have when we'll never have. I hate to, I'm a half glass full kind of gal just because I've been doing this for so long and kind of what I've seen. Um, and to go back to like kind of where Wisconsin Ashlee came from and the situation that she's in was in her city goes to the fact that our governments are still not changing their mind about how important public health and safety is with animals. For me, I'm lucky enough, my city puts us at the forefront. They treat us like first responders. They know what the battle that we have to go up against when it comes to funding, when it comes to just operations. And I think the biggest mindset that we have to change is that we are not going to be money-making departments. And I feel like that is the issue that it stems from all across the United States is, whether it be through citations, which is highly unethical, or licensing, which I still think is highly unethical as well. Like those things the city sees as well, their enterprise funds for them to put back into the shelter. Most facilities don't do that at the end of the day. So I think it's a really tough position when it comes to municipalities or just government shelters at the end of the day because there are higher priorities than animals. And I feel like in the world we live in right now, especially with the chaos that we're seeing in politics right now, I don't know that we'll ever get to that point. And how do we ensure our lawmakers, to our local governments, to put that effort in there when there are people out there who are, well, children matter,
Yeah. I
or
think,
it's
yeah.
so hard.
It's such a great question, and I feel the weight of that. I really, really do. And there is not going to be an easy solution, so I don't want to present it otherwise, but I can share some messaging that we're providing to local leaders right now in New York because it's everything I'm getting ready to say would apply to Texas. It would apply to any other part of the world, frankly. Um, First of all, when we reach out to, for example, a city council member, I say, I'm coming to you as a healthcare provider. And the reason why I say that is because this is a whole other topic. Other animal rights activists who are not on this call have kind of spoiled the pond with extremist language, personal attacks, racist comments,
Oh yeah.
Like the worst trolling, and this is usually people who don't even live in that area.
Oh my goodness. All the
So
time.
yeah, so they have, and like it's so short-sighted because what they don't realize is they've given city leaders license to ignore them for life. It's like if you just block someone on Instagram and you will literally never hear them ever again. That is city leaders in New York. They've said, well, if you're going to be an asshole, if you're going to be racist
Yeah.
and attack me personally and threaten me, great, thank you. I no longer need to listen to anything you ever say ever again. So for me to even get a meeting with city council, I can't present myself as being one of them because they see us all as one big pack of angry extremists, right? So I say I'm not here. I'm not. Yeah, we do rescue. I'm here as a healthcare provider. We provide a critical service to your constituents. And Daniel, to your point, the data is clear. 95% of Americans view pets as family at this point. Like this is the last nonpartisan issue we have left. And I tell them that. Like this is not, I care less. I talk to folks from all political backgrounds about this issue. And so I say, this is actually about affordability, to answer your question, Ashley, because I can't assume, unfortunately, I can't assume that they care because the reality is they don't all care. We have 51 council members. I think like four of them are like all in for animals and they're like
Good
diehards.
Lord. I have enough with six. God,
Yeah.
51. My goodness.
Yeah, and so you're right when you say you're correct when you say this is not on their list. And what I say is you were elected to lead the city. You can walk and chew gum at the same time. You have a staff. You are accountable for moving things forward, and that includes sponsoring, supporting, not blocking dozens of key initiatives at any given time because our budget is $115 billion. That's more than many countries.
Right.
Don't tell me you can't find a couple $1 million in the couch. If you want me to show you the waste that you could be pulling from, I will, but we don't need to go there. Let's keep it positive. So I say this is about affordability. I say that right now, the city is not spending the money that they are spending on animal welfare, which is lower than it should be per capita. You're spending it poorly, and so you're always going to need more. Because while shelters absolutely do need to be funded, and they should actually be funded better, because there's myriad issues including staff pay, um, you will never solve the problem just by funding shelters. So I talk math because they love numbers and they love saving money. So I say, right now, you're spending over $41 million a year on sheltering animals alone, which quick back of the napkin math means you're spending well over $1,000 every time an animal crosses your doorway. Much more than that, actually, when you factor it all in. What if instead you could spend 75% less? What if you could spend $250 per animal and not only keep that pet with their family, but prevent that pet from having offspring that lands at your shelters too? Because again, the data is all here. We just haven't caught up to some of the solutions that are available. And then we recommend specific solutions because what has been happening with advocacy and municipal conversations is all throwing rocks. It's all anger, it's all criticizing shelters, talking about the leadership of the shelter, calling people out by name, getting personal, making attacks. That's not productive. So instead we talk about what the solution could look like. And I invite them to visit Flatbush Vet, and it's a clean, professional looking, beautiful space that was funded by private donors, not by them. And I say, imagine this clinic in every single neighborhood across all five boroughs. Imagine your constituents having affordable access to what they need to keep their pets with them. Because the number one issue that every elected representative needs to be dialed into right now if they want to stay in office is affordability. So that's how we talk about it, and we're putting a proposal in front of them right now to make that shift.
Will, how are you finding the vets though to
Hmm.
be at these vet clinics? Like across the United States, there is a veterinary desert. And how many vets are at the clinic right now?
We have 3 full-time DVMs,
Okay.
and we're about to hire a fourth.
Whew. Are you doing anything to be able to help bring them in?
Yes, I will talk about what we do. It is simple and straightforward, but not easy. Um, First, compensation.
Right.
They need to be paid fairly. This is a ridiculously hard job. I mean, all of your jobs are ridiculously hard. So, not at the exclusion of anyone else. I'm just saying it's a really difficult job, physically, mentally, emotionally. And so, I think the first mistake that is being made in the sector, not pointing any fingers specifically, is we're all stuck in this scarcity mindset, and we're like, we don't have enough money to hire a vet, and then we wonder why like they don't want to come and perform, all these amazing services for us. So we have to get our money situation sorted up front. So I had to fundraise, not the city did not pay me to pay these vets. I had to fundraise through individuals and foundations so that we would have the budget to offer a semi-competitive salary. What do I mean by that? It's not going to be the most that they could make at a general practice, but unfortunately, right now, the lowest paid vet salary in any given city is at the shelter. And that needs to change, right? That's a separate issue. That should be funded by the city. They should increase that immediately. They should increase comp for everyone in the shelter tomorrow. But you got to pay above that, and the mission is a huge part of it, but I tell people that the mission alone is not enough. So, yes, vets would rather work somewhere where they don't have to explain, economic euthanasia to someone who can't afford a $10,000 foreign body bill, right?
Sure.
That will kill you. That will literally kill a vet. And so they would rather work for us, but we had to check all the boxes. We have to pay them well. We have to build a facility that is nice and modern where they actually have to work, where they actually want to work. And then we need to support them. So that's having the right staff ratio. It's not expecting anyone to be a martyr. That's appropriate levels of staffing for whatever we aspire to do, supporting them with paid time off and benefits. It's all the stuff that you would see in the corporate side, minus the, predatory pricing.
That there's so much work to be done, and I can just tell you that we're grateful that you took the time to speak with us today. We have our little text chain going on back and forth, and everyone's like, "Get him back. We need to have Will back." And I think if you're open to it, um, that's something that we would love to do. There's so many topics, and we didn't even dive into one of the things I wanted to talk about, which was this current situation with people in this country being deported, and then uh, family members, pets being left behind. And I think, I think that's a conversation for another day because it definitely deserves and needs that discussion. I'm excited to work with you in all aspects of continuing to move animal welfare forward. We talk about it all the time on the show. I think for Flatbush Cats, I'm just going to put you on the spot and maybe make you an official sponsor of the Accidental Cat Challenge tattoo. And I don't know if you're familiar with it, Will, or not. Um, but it's something that I want to turn into a fundraiser. It happened accidentally, completely accidentally, and became pretty organic. And it's really now an opportunity to raise some awareness around that spay and neuter aspect because these ugly cats are just multiplying on my leg, and I really need to get my leg fixed soon. We're working towards that. And at the end of the day, it's coming up with those creative and just fun ways to kind of not profit, fund nonprofits to really do some of that work that you're doing. I live, like I said, I lived in the sixth borough. That's Jersey City. Would you consider it the sixth borough out there? I mean, it kind of
I
has to
only
be.
recognize 4 boroughs.
Oh, you don't even recognize Staten Island? Wow. What? Not wow. All right, cool. All right, he's just the greater Manhattan area. I lived out there for a little while, and I know what that city is like. And there's a lot of moving pieces. But one thing that people have a misconception of New Yorkers is that they're rude, they're unempathetic. They're one of the nice set of people I've ever been around, and I mean that sincerely. Uh, I have a like anywhere you go, can you have that mix of people that are bad and rude? Sure, but New Yorkers are a compassionate bunch. They're
Yeah.
a resourceful bunch, and so getting that buy-in from them, I think this can go a long way with the work that you're doing and others, not only in the Manhattan, New York City area, but across the country.
Yeah, I heard from someone when I moved here, like, we'll be a little brusque if we'll tell you if you're taking up too much room on the sidewalk, but if you're walking too slow, but we're also not going to let you carry your stroller up the stairs by yourself.
It's
And there's,
it's funny you say that because that's exactly what happened. My baby was 6 months and we were going on the probably the one or the nine train, which I'm sure you're familiar with, and I'm going down the steps and this woman just yoink to the front of it and just starts carrying it down the steps. I'm like, I love New York.
yeah. Well, that's a good closing point is like, let's assume positive intent. We constantly underestimate our own power as individuals, but more importantly, we have drastically underestimated our collective power. We have not yet begun to tap the power of what we can accomplish when we stop thinking small and start looking at what we actually want to have happen in the world. Start speaking it into existence, and we'll find that our neighbors and our community members actually want the same thing and are willing to work towards that. So I know it's a very dark and challenging time right now, but I do believe that we we are the majority in terms of people who care about each other, in terms of people who will look out for each other and our four-legged friends. And so once we start working together more cohesively, we can shift the conversation and ultimately shift resources to where they need to be.
Well, we really appreciate your time. Check out flatbushcats.org and flatbushvet.org. See, I did it right this time. Flatbush Vet slash flatbushcat.org. Check those both out. There's some awesome information there. Check out our website, Keep It Humane, all the socials. Please like, share, rate the podcast. Tune in next week. We got some fun stuff going on. And again, Will, we thank you. Thank you for all the hard work that you're doing there. And yeah, we hope to chat with you again, man. This
Yeah.
was pretty enlightening, and there's a lot of great work to be done. And man, we, as we always say on the show,
Help people.
Help animals.
and keep it humane. Bishop, keep it humane.